Wow, you're all so quiet. Thank you.
You can hear a pin drop.
You don't need a gavel. Well, welcome everyone to the Merrillville Town Council meeting for today, Tuesday, January 14th at 6:30. Please stand for our Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing afterwards for our invocation.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's pray. Oh God, our Father, thank you for the blessings that have been ours already for this new year. Father, we assemble this evening with a renewed vision, a renewed passion for serving, a renewed passion for living. So, Father, we thank you for the men and women assembled in this room. We thank you for those who have assembled to commemorate and to congratulate and initiate those who will join the ranks of the police. Father, we thank you for the protection you've given. We thank you for your goodness and your grace. So now, Father, as we seek your face, we seek your leading, your guidance, your wisdom, your knowledge upon those who have been chosen to lead this community. May they with grace go forward. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Amen.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you all. Mr. January, could you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. President. Vice President Neal.
Here.
Councilwoman Haynes Edwards.
Present.
Councilwoman Chandler Felton.
Present.
Councilwoman Uselak.
Present.
Councilman Pettit.
Here.
Councilwoman Hardaway.
Here.
President Bella.
Here.
7 present.
7 present, thank you. Tonight, we do have under petitions, communications, acknowledgements, and remonstrations, the swearing in of new Merrillville Police Department officers. We'd like to welcome to the front table here, along with our police chief and the police commissioners, Griffin Belt, Brandon Anderson, and Lauren Collin. Mr. January will join them to swear him in. Chief, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Welcome. I'll get this going. Welcome aboard. This is going to be your official swearing in here, and I'll let Mr. January do the swearing in, and then I'll give a little bit about everybody.
Sure. All right. So we'll do this individually. Mr. Griffith Belt, repeat after me. This is the oath of office. I, Griffin Belt, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Indiana, and that I will faithfully and diligently and impartially discharge my duties as a police officer of the town of Merrillville, Indiana, according to the law and to the best of my ability. So help me God. All right. And I'm doing this in the order that it was given me, so ladies should not be last. But I, Braden Anderson, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Indiana, and that I will faithfully, diligently, and impartially discharge my duties as a police officer of the town of Merrillville, Indiana, according to the law and to the best of my ability. So help me God. All right. And finally, I, Lauren Collin, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Indiana, and that I will faithfully and diligently and impartially discharge my duties as a police officer of the town of Merrillville, Indiana, according to the law and to the best of my ability. So help me God. Congratulations.
So just real quick, I want to announce that every single one of these new police officers have never been a police officer before, so they're brand new. And I welcome you. And what I would like to say is what I've said to others in the past. Each and every one of you have something special that you're going to contribute. You don't know it just yet, but it's going to happen. You are going to contribute something to this job that nobody else has ever contributed before. So once we get through the academy and everything hands out and you're done and ready, we'll be waiting. So congratulations and welcome aboard. Thank you. Also, one more thing, I'd like to welcome and announce our new Assistant Chief, Matt Vassell. Matt Vassell has been part of my command staff for the last, it's been going on 4 years now, and he decided to step up and become the Assistant Chief. So this is Matt, everybody, and give him a warm round of applause. That's all I have. Thank you.
Congratulations, everyone. Welcome aboard.
Yes.
Brian, if you want to get a group photo, please come forward. And if you mind sharing that with me, since Chaz isn't here tonight, I'd appreciate that, sir. Thank you, Chief. Mr. January. We also have a letter from the town attorney. I'd like to read it to the record. Do you have it? What do you do?
Go ahead. Oh, yeah. You want me to read it while they're walking out?
Yeah, I think it's okay, sure.
Okay. All right. Dear President Bella, it has been my distinct pleasure to continue to serve as the town attorney for the town of Merrillville, Town Council, Plan Commission, Board of Zoning Appeals, Redevelopment Commission, Economic Development Commission, Abandoned and Blighted Properties, and Ordinance Violations. At this time, I would like to be considered for reappointment to fill these positions for the calendar year of 2025. Thank you for your consideration. Very truly yours, Kapinka Pingus, Doolin, PC, Joseph C. Fetinoff.
Mr. President, motion to reappoint Joseph Fetinoff
Second.
to all the firms he listed in the letter.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Pettit. Motion. Counselor Hardaway for a second. Questions or comments on the motion? I do want to point out publicly what we talked about in our workshop is that this company has kept our rates the same for the last 8 years. I don't know of anything else that hasn't gone up in 8 years. So, Joe, thank you for doing that. I mean, it means a lot to us. I appreciate that.
No, thank you for the opportunity.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I have a comment. And I know
January.
I probably don't have the votes, but I do think that we should probably consider another town attorney, because once, I can cite 4 different reasons, but in one particular instance, I asked something about the MCD and saying, why don't we take over the MCD? And we talked about how the legislation was dead. He didn't disclose to me for the fact that he actually represents the MCD. So it's a conflict of interest. And then secondly, just recently, at a plan commission meeting, I'm not an attorney, but I did learn in the 8th grade about the Bill of Rights. And he made the statement that the town has not adopted the First Amendment. That's the problem.
Absolutely false.
We have it on tape.
Great.
Mr. President, call for the vote. We have a
No.
motion and a second on the floor.
No, I'm talking. I have the floor.
This is a council decision, Eric.
No, it's not a council decision when I have the floor. After I'm finished talking, then you can maybe call for a vote. In fact, you can't call it. He's the president. Once the debate has died down, it's up to the president to call it, not somebody that's a council people. Read Robert's Rules of Order.
You're not a policy member.
Wow.
I can make a comment.
No.
Anybody
as a
can make
member
a
of the
comment.
public.
But this, second, he mentioned we went through a litigious process where I'm paying the town attorney, the court is paying the town attorney, and they're paying the attorneys, 3 attorneys, to fight over the fact whether or not the clerk treasurer has the ability to break a tie. That's Indiana law. Several people have sided with it. The judge has just recently sided with it. But we're getting opinions that don't make any sense, and it's costing the town some unnecessary money. And then finally, today, the court basically decided that, which we'll find out on the 27th for sure, that they were trying to suspend the ruling or get an error in judgment or whatever that is, and he can explain whatever that is. An error in how the judge determined that the court should stay open. And the error was that it should have gone to second reading. The reason it's probably going to be thrown out is a reason that you hire attorneys so they can cover every single detail. In this particular incident, the town did not adequately explain that it was a first reading. And as a result of it not being a first reading, whatever they were talking about was a moot point. We've got representation in this town that's costing us money. And we should probably definitely consider somebody else. So it's not my vote, but I just wanted to make those comments.
Please call the roll.
All right, so calling the vote on this. Vice President Neal,
Yes.
Councilwoman Haynes Edwards,
Yes.
Councilwoman Chandler Felton,
I'll say nay. Not nay, I'm sorry. Aye.
Councilwoman Uselak,
Yes.
Councilman Pettit,
Yes.
Councilwoman Hardaway,
Yes.
President Bella,
Aye,
7 in favor.
7 in favor. Mr. Svetnoff, you had also some comments under communications?
Yes, President Bella, just to address one issue that the clerk treasurer kindly brought up tonight that I'd like to cover. Good evening. I'd first like to read an excerpt from the Indiana Public Access Counselor's website. Can a governing body prevent a person from speaking at its meetings? Yes, quote unquote. The open door law does not guarantee the public's right to speak at public meetings. Unless a law requires the board to take public comments for a specific issue, a governing body is not required to take public comments during a public meeting. If the governing body allows public comments during an ordinary meeting, the governing body can limit the amount of time allowed for each speaker. On January 7, 2025, the Merrillville Planning Commission conducted a special meeting to consider at least 5 resolutions that are ironically being considered by the Merrillville Town Council tonight. During this meeting, certain members of the public violated our Town of Merrillville Civility Ordinance, number 1911, by raising their voices, speaking out of turn, and by just lacking civility, decorum, and common courtesy for the Plan Commission and its membership. Also during this meeting, comments were made about constitutional rights and freedom of speech, whereby I commented that freedom of speech does not exist when you are acting out of order and or lacking civility, decorum, and common courtesy for the presiding body. Remember, in Indiana, public comment at a public meeting is a privilege and not a right. And the town council at any time has the right to limit public speech under constantly protected provisions under time, place, manner restrictions, or eliminate public comment altogether. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Moving on tonight to the consent agenda, we have the accounts payable voucher approval for January 14th, the AP register summary for ARP purchases for January 14th, and the approval of the town council meeting minutes of December 30th.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mrs. Uselak, second by Counselor Neal. for approval of the consent agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to standing committee reports, Budget and Finance, Counselor Neal.
No report tonight, President Bella.
Council Affairs, Mrs. Uselak.
No report tonight.
Street Department, Mrs. Uselak.
Oh, the street department? I have been in touch with Mr. King over the weekend, and they have done a lot of snow plowing. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, they were out there all day long, and Sunday or Saturday, they were up until 1 a.m. in the morning of Monday morning. So they've been doing a real good job, and I'm sure the town appreciates it. And if there's anybody parking their car on the street during the snow plowing, please remove your car, put it in a driveway, or just get it out of the way of the trucks so they could do the proper job. Okay, Steve has also, under his direction with his crew, they have done a lot of pothole patching all through the town. They also were plowing and salting the bike path and parking lots at the parks. So I commend you, Steve, for doing a good job with your crew. Thank you. And that's my report.
I do
Mr.
have a
President.
comment, President Bella.
Go ahead.
There was a residential complaint in Ward 7, and so I just want to make sure that your snow plow for Ward 7 is hitting all of the subdivisions, especially Devonshire, where the complaint came from.
So actually, I got a call today from a resident on Van Buren Street in Devonshire. She claimed that her street has never been plowed since snow has started falling this year. I went out 5 minutes after the resident called. I sat in front of her house on the street. I took a picture. I showed Councilwoman Hardaway. You can see the pavement on the road. So obviously, we were out there and have been out there. So anytime we get complaints like that, we investigate. I did this one. You can clearly see pavement, and it was plowed, so.
And as chairman of this committee, Mr. King and I had talked about that today. He went out there, he took the picture, and before he even took the picture, the street was plowed. Thank you, Mr. King.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. King.
You're welcome.
Thank you, President Bella.
Sure. Moving on tonight to elections, public relations, and town beautification, Councilor Neal.
Thank you, President Bella. We have not had a meeting with Robertson Engineering to get any updates on our gateway sign, so that's something I'll have to contact him to see when we're going to meet again, and that's all.
Very good. Environmental Affairs, a new chairperson is Mrs. Uselak.
Well, I haven't gotten around to anything just now. I was just appointed to that, but I'll be looking into it and looking into all of the
Retention ponds, yeah.
the properties with the,
Very
thank
good.
you,
Thank you.
Mr. President.
Personnel Policy and Employee Benefits, Ms. Hardaway.
As of today, we have narrowed down our search for the Parks Director. We have been in contact with 3 individuals. So we will narrow that down from 3. I believe we're going to 2, and I will defer to Mr. Griffin to speak on that for me.
Mr. Griffin.
With your permission, Mr. President?
Sure.
Thank you, Madam Councilwoman. You said everything perfectly. I can't say it better. Thank you.
Anything else?
I have nothing else at this point. Thank you, Mr. President.
How about Public Safety Committee, Ms. Hardaway?
Chief Nueces and I did speak, and we will be, I will be scheduling a meeting with public safety as soon as our schedules are available. Thank you.
Thank you. Economic Development, Mr. Pettit.
Yes, Mr. President. Couple of items. Number one, Sheila, Bob Pillman, and I had the pleasure of going through the new Amazon PPO 4, the 1 million square foot building, and it is, Sheila, I guess mind-blowing would be the best way to describe that building, would it not be? They've got 32 bays on the Mississippi Street side of the building. They've got 36 on the I-65 side of the building. A vendor brings his product in on the Mississippi Street side. They unload the semi, and within 7 minutes, trucks on the I-65 side are loaded up and going to distribution centers, which then takes them to a third leg, and finally it would go to the fulfillment center. So it's an absolute unbelievable project. Unfortunately, they're going live tomorrow. And unfortunately, the rest of the council and the rest of the town cannot go in there right now. We are going to try and, between Angie and Sheila and I, we're going to try and schedule a ribbon cutting and a media event where everyone can get back in. It's got to go through Amazon's headquarters. It's got to go to Seattle and get permission to get back in is how intense this is. The one important factor, and I see him sitting back there, Matthew, I cannot thank you enough again. We were told at this tour that come April 1st, there will be 1,000 employees working in that building for Amazon. That's economic development in the town of Merrillville. Matthew, thank you again for Silos at Sanders Farm. The other item I have, Mr. President, again, later on in the agenda, as Joe alluded to, there will be 5 resolutions related to economic development. One is an advertised public hearing that Mr. Pittman and Ms. Chilcott advertised, which includes public comment. The other 4 resolutions are the third stage of adding allocation areas within the town of Merrillville. That's just a resolution for the 7 of us to consider. Those 4 resolutions in its final stage at the RDC meeting on January 28th. That is an advertised public hearing, correct, Tom? That's when the public can comment on the final stage of the 4 allocation areas, just so everyone's clear about what can take place tonight and as presiding officer. So that'll be my report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Moving on to utility liaison.
No report tonight, President Bella.
Okay. Utility liaison also?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Parks and Dean and Barbara White Community Center. Mr. Pettit.
Okay, thank you. He threw me off, Leona.
I threw myself off.
I've got to get with Lisa and Michael, our normal 4th Thursday. If the committee can make it, I'd like to get those back going again. I know Lisa has got some concerns on some rentals. We still have the flooring issue. I know Mike Neal has been working with CORE on the heating and air conditioning. So at this time, Mr. Griffin, if we can call a Dean and Barbara White Community Center / Parks for Thursday, the 23rd of January at 5 p.m. Lisa, if you can let Barb know, we can take whichever room 1, 2, or 3 is available, and the committee will convene there. If you can let your staff know, okay? I don't know if you have anything else to add?
No.
Thank you. Abandoned and blighted properties. Ms. Haynes Edwards.
Thank you, President Bella. Our code enforcement participated in 143 calls for service, issued 16 warnings and 30 citations. We currently have 15 vacant abandoned building cases. This is from December 1st through today. That is all, and that we are not pursuing code enforcement officers will not be going out issuing citations during this time of the year until the weather has lifted.
Okay.
So that is all for that report.
Thank you. How about your next committee, please?
Semi-quincentennial committee, we will be meeting in the spring to go ahead and start planning so that we can get a committee using our residents as well as some of our town employees.
Very good. The special town projects, Councilor Neal.
Thank you, President Bella. I just want to make a correction about the gateway signs. I did receive an email, so we did hit a little bump in the road with that. I do see Bob from Robinson Engineering is out there, and he did correspond with me earlier today, but I didn't see the email. So I just want to update that. And the special town projects, we are working on all of our upcoming events for the new year, starting with Black History, and we're working all the way through 4th of July. And that's all.
Thank you. Moving on tonight to department and commission reports. Lake County Solid Waste Management District. Our representative is Councilor Neal.
Thank you again, President Bella. Fingers crossed that we will have a meeting Thursday at 6:30. They're still trying to form a quorum to have a meeting, so we are 3 months past due for a meeting. So hopefully we'll have a meeting with them this night at 6:30.
Thank you. Counselor Hardaway, can you update us on the Northern Indiana Regional Planning Commission?
We have a meeting on Thursday.
Okay. Stormwater Management Resources, Director Matt King.
Matt Lake.
Matt Lake.
Okay.
You're king to me, Matt.
Thank you. Yeah, really quick. Issued notice to proceed to dire construction for the Hickory Ridge Flood Control Project. They had a coordination meeting with all the utilities. We're doing a little bit of potholing just to validate everything. And when it warms up a little bit, I want to do a groundbreaking ceremony for this project, just to let you know. So I'll let you guys know about that when that comes about. Southmore Park, the redesign of that is about 95% complete. Got probably one more meeting with Robinson Engineering, and then we'll try to get that out to bid. Hendrick Street drainage improvement along there, we got VS Engineering. They're about 90% done with plans. We got one easement to get, and then we're pretty close to getting that out to bid this year. Country Club Estates, second edition, phase 1 and phase 2. Robinson is working on that. I think they're about 75% on that one. And Independence Hill, third edition, drainage design, that's going pretty smoothly. That'll be a large project. I'm going to seek out some grants for that and make sure that we can get all we can out of that one. Submitting CRS renewals to FEMA. That lowers flood insurance for everybody, so this is our annual renewal. A lot of data and information that goes to them, so we maintain our compliance. And also working annual reports. This is for our stormwater construction permit for our annual report to IDM. And we're looking at a couple pieces of equipment right now. We got a price on a John Deere tractor with a Tiger mower, and then we're going to start looking at a new jet vac truck because ours has been here about 16 years, so we're probably due for an upgrade.
Very good. Thank you. Fire Territory Board, Mrs. Neal and Ms. Hardaway.
No report, Mr. President.
And moving on to department reports, Lisa Roberts, Parks and Recreation.
Just to touch base on what Councilman Pettit said, we're just going to be talking about flooring in the HVAC system and some events that are requiring us possibly to close the building. Other than that, I have no other report.
Thank you. Police Department, Chief Newsas.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I'll start off saying Happy New Year to everybody. This is our first meeting that we've had for the first of the year, so I'd like to start off with that. It already seems that we're moving in a positive direction for the new year. Yesterday, my administration staff and I met, and we discussed pretty much everything that we saw for 2024, what we liked, what we didn't like. We discussed our goals. Each and every one of us presented goals and expectations that we have for the new year. And we want to quickly work on them to get them in place. We are looking on how to make Merrillville even safer and even more pleasurable for everybody to come and visit and join us. So as of this time, I apologize, I do not have my monthly reports because we are trying to get we don't have all the information yet for December, but we're also trying to get together the whole year's information. I don't have an Intel analyst, so this is something that the secretaries actually have to put a little bit of an extra burden on, but we are working on it. Councilwoman Uselak, you already said it, but I also want to give a shout out to Steve because today I came out and I saw the roads were paved or roads were plowed. And as working patrol for many years, it's a huge. It's very nice to see that the roads are plowed and we can get to where we need to get to. So thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Chief. Planning and Building Department, Ms. Sheila Shine.
Councilman Pettit stole my report. However, I would like to take the opportunity to thank the Merrillville Development Team. It's a wonderful team here, which starts with our Economic Development Director, and then we all sit down with our development team, Matt Lake, Steve King, and our consulting engineers, and the wonderful building inspectors that work on all of our projects. And when I walked through the building, I seen every part taking place when we started meeting about the building, and then we went back and forth with the engineers, and then we got the plan, then we gave the permit, and it was just a wonderful feeling to be able to walk through a building and see all of that take place. So I don't want to leave out police and fire because they are part of the team. They review our plans. And we sat down today with another developer, so we're looking forward to doing a lot more here in the town of Merrillville. Thank you, Mr. President.
Ms. Shine, besides the hospital, do we have any other business in town that has 1,000 employees?
No, not yet.
I didn't think so.
We're working on another one.
Okay, great. Street Department, Steve King.
No report. I don't have anything else to add to what we did earlier.
Okay. Mr. Griffin, Town Manager.
Mr. President, Madam Vice President, members of the council, Mr. January, thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Two things. I did file with you my monthly report. I encourage you to read it. I want to highlight two matters out of it. I did complete department head employee appraisals. All I can tell you is what a great team you have assembled. They're remarkable, and I'm proud to be in their company. What does the Caesar used to say in Latin? Primus inter pares, which means first among equals. That is my role, and I thank you for every member of the council for your hand in letting me continue to do this. I thank you for that. In my report that I do encourage you to read, I want to highlight the fact that we were awarded our grant under the Federal Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant program. This is, it just meant I made a compelling argument and filled out the paperwork well. The money was really there already. It was an entitlement grant based on our demographics, but it is for $76,330 under the aegis of the Department of Energy. And the project we've selected is to use light emitting diode or LED lights to retrofit this building and perhaps even Public Works. We have a target of energy savings that is our goal with that. And our hope is there'll be very little local match that's required. There is no requirement. If this will cover everything, we can do it with that. But I'm hopeful, and I'll start work on developing the specifications for advertisement. Apart from that, if there's a question of me, I'll be proud to answer it. Otherwise, I'll be even prouder to be seated.
Anything for Michael? Thank you, Mr. Griffin.
Thank you more.
Moving on tonight to general orders, we
Well,
have.
hold on.
I'm sorry, Clerk Treasurer, you did
Correct.
say you had a report. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. All right. So, first of all, starting off with the part that you don't like, the town as of November the 30th had $42,364,395.13 in the account. We didn't have any fraudulent checks or anything to speak of. Our positive pay is working well. We're still looking for a permanent payroll clerk. But I did want to mention something that I would consider check fraud. And it is per the Indiana statute, it states that all financing agreements and trust agreements and bonds must be executed by two people in this town. That's the executive, yourself, Mr. Bella, and myself, the clerk of the fiscal body. Well, last year we ended off the year, and it was a very contentious year. I didn't want to go into the year fighting. Yeah, I told everyone that I wanted to just make peace. But then, behind my back, I found out that we had closings for the Boys and Girls Club and Andrew High School. And how I found out about closings is that the bonding company presented a bond to us, or a payment request for $100,000. I was so shocked and flabbergasted that somebody asked for $100,000, and I didn't even know about the closing as a clerk of the town. So I found out that we had the closings, and I got copies of one of them, don't have the copies of the other. But I finally got it and saw who executed the documents. It was Mr. Bella and Michael Griffith, not the clerk treasurer.
So I believe he signed where it's attested to my signature. He didn't
Correct.
sign to approve
No,
any
but
type
this is
of
the bond. This is the bond. That's the place that normally in every document that I've seen, and I've been here over a year, where the clerk treasurer has always signed, always. There's never been an exception to this. To me, this is tantamount to fraud. And I'm actually pursuing this because this is the type of stuff that we cannot tolerate. We have checks and balances in place. I should never, ever be surprised about a payment being requested by anybody that didn't come out of my office. This is just completely unacceptable. And it also says in Indiana law that just in terms of that among the duties of the manager of the town legislative body may not authorize the manager to issue or execute bonds or notes or warrants of the town. So when I talk about having great legal representation, we have got to have people to hold, not just tell you what you want to hear, but what you need to hear. And that's not what we're getting, and we're having to spend a lot of money in the courts. I should not have to go to the Attorney General, the Lake County prosecutor, and all of this stuff just to enforce the law.
Mr. Griffin, why did you attest to my signature on a time-sensitive document? I think it was.
Mr. President, I thank you. This is an awkward moment for me because I've tried to exercise profound respect for the office that you hold, Mr. January. And there again, you characterize some of what's happened just enough to make it feel as if you've got
I've been
genuine
right in
grievance.
every instance.
Please
But
allow
I'll
me to
let you
speak,
talk.
sir.
I'll let you talk.
Please allow me to speak. You
I'll let
insist
you
on it on
talk.
yourself, and you
Talk.
seem to want to get loud, believing that that makes you more cogent. It doesn't.
Talk.
Thank you. You had engaged in what were conditions on, by the way, I'm very happy that you read statutes that required you to know you have a duty to sign those, not an option. You have an obligation. And every time that you said, I will do it if and then, you wanted conditions to be met, you can't do that when it's an obligation. That you can do when it's discretionary. We had a timetable to meet closing, which you would have been aware of. We sent notices out to everyone. And if you missed that, I will make sure we do due diligence to not let that happen again. But you're kind of angry about your engagement. When you do a constructive refusal to sign, we still need to have an attestation. That statutory provision that says I can't execute bonds, notes, and warrants, I'm fully aware of it. That's what the council president does. My signature didn't make those lawful. My signature only was to attest that the council president signed it, which is what you would be doing under that statute, not as a fiscal officer, but as clerk of the legislative body. Now, I am encouraged to hear that you're now aware of that law and will do your duty each time it's presented to you, because then I'll have more time to do the other things I'm tasked with. But when you characterize it in such a way as it's a fraud, that's patently false and it's not legally valid. And I hope you use that statute to try to assert that somehow I violated the law. It'll be a profound lesson to you that I did not, because I take my oath profoundly seriously. I affirmed it before God and before the person who administered my oath, as you did yours, which I saw. Now, please forgive me for being loud and seem to have to be terse, but you raised it from the unfair advantage of sitting as an office holder at the dais. And I'm in service to all the members in that full council on the dais, so I have a little bit of a one step below that, but I can't let that go as a matter of public education without being rejoinded. Please, sir, exercise caution. If you felt hurt, you could have spoken to me directly. And you have a fairly long email where I explained to you what had happened. And then you said you didn't mean to offend me. And then tonight you decided to raise it because you want to somehow suggest that I'm not serving well, or that I don't know the law, or that somehow you've been disrespected. Sir, I have gone out of my way. I have talked to people about all the ways in which I've tried to do that, because I held an office just like that for 30 years. I venerate the office you hold. I profoundly respect its role in government. I shared with you about how Scripture talks about a clerk of the legislative body stood up and stopped a riot at Ephesus so that Paul and his legion would not be stoned. And by that I mean thrown rocks at. Sir, please don't mischaracterize my service, and I will work very hard not to do the same to you. Mr. President, I beg your pardon. Members of the council, Madam Vice President, and you, Mr. January, I beg my pardon if I've seen untoward, but I can't let that go unrejoined because it doesn't correctly characterize what happened. I thank you, sir.
Okay.
So now that you've said that, I was not made aware of the meeting. I was not given an opportunity to sign it. It was done secretively, and it was intentional. I understand what you're saying, but I do not believe half of what you said, because the facts speak for themselves.
move on, Eric.
I did not get any document. I'm not trying to try this in court, but that's just an absolute fact.
Moving on tonight to general orders, we have a first reading ordinance 25-01. It is a ordinance to amend the recently adopted wage and salary ordinance to modify salaries in the police department according to the terms of the collective bargaining agreement by fixing the salary of the Board of Directors of the Stormwater Management Department. Mr. Griffin, anything to add?
Mr. President, thank you for recognizing me. I apologize for standing. I know that I said I would try to refrain from this. I am asking if you would consider, please, suspending your rules to consider this on first reading. As you pointed out, it does act to give the Stormwater Board its salary, which is a salary that has to be fixed by you and not them. They are now taking the steps to do a resolution to adopt their employees' pay, which is what the statute requires, along with the Board of Directors of the Fire Territory Board, which is what both statute and interlocal cooperation agreement require. This also does add security to a line. As you may be aware, we did take steps to move away from our ARPA funds, and we had to obligate them by law. However, that meant moving them into the general fund. They've been placed in the Town Administration Department at rates that should be clear to you on the page of that. And our hope is that we would like to be able to start to pay them lawfully. I think we could make it work if you decided to simply consider it over 2 readings, but I'm inviting you to consider, since this is essentially the ordinance you've already adopted, except for the points that you raised, Stormwater Board, adding the police correction, and these languages which would deal with the security being added now, the people out there, from ARPA to the general fund.
So
I
to
thank you, Mr.
clarify, you'd like us to suspend the rules when we get to second reading?
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is first reading right now.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, motion to approve ordinance 2501.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pettit, second by Mrs. Uselak for approval of ordinance 2501 on first reading. Open for comments. Hearing none, Mr. January, roll call, please.
Yes, Mr. President. Vice President Neal.
Yes.
Councilwoman Haynes Edwards.
Aye.
Councilwoman Chandler Felton.
Aye.
Councilwoman Uselak.
Yes.
Councilman Pettit.
Yes.
Councilwoman Hardaway.
Yes.
President Bella.
Aye.
7 in favor.
7 in favor, motion carries on first reading. Is there a motion to suspend the rules per the town manager's request?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Uselak, seconded by Ms. Neal,
Yes.
to suspend the rules in order to allow us to read this on second reading. Any questions or comments on the motion to suspend? Hearing none, Mr. January, please.
Sure. Vice President Neal.
Yes.
Councilwoman Haynes Edwards.
Aye.
Councilwoman Chandler Felton.
Aye.
Councilwoman Uselak.
Yes.
Councilman Pettit.
Yes.
Councilwoman Hardaway.
Yes.
President Bella.
Aye.
7 in favor.
7 in favor, we will suspend the rules to read this on second reading tonight. We often do this, audience, when there's a time-sensitive matter involved with the ordinance. This is in reference to some pay and salaries, so we want to get it finished so that the clerk treasurer's office can actually make the payroll correctly.
Mr. President, make a motion to approve ordinance 2501 on second reading.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pettit, second by Mrs. Neal, for approval on 25-01 on second and final reading. Questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none. Mr. January, roll call, please.
Vice President Neal.
Yes.
Councilwoman Haynes Edwards.
Aye.
Councilwoman Chandler Felton.
Aye.
Councilwoman Uselak.
Yes.
Councilman Pettit.
Yes.
Councilwoman Hardaway.
Yes.
President Bella.
Aye.
7 in favor.
7 in favor. Motion carries, Mr. Griffin.
Mr. President, members of the council, I thank you very much.
Thank you. Moving on tonight to resolutions. Our first resolution is 25-01. It's a resolution confirming the designation of an economic revitalization area and approving the deduction from assessed value of a real new property improvements. As we move into a public comment on this particular resolution, I do want to read an announcement from the town council. And Happy New Year to everyone, too. As the new year begins, the council and I are committed to fostering a positive and productive meeting environment. To this end, we ask that everyone to please follow the rules that ensure our sessions remain lawful, orderly, and respectful. These guidelines are in place to allow for meaningful discussion and decision-making. Personal attacks, insults, threats, disruptive behavior, excessive interruptions, irrelevant comments, speaking out of turn, offensive language, or any actions that disrupt the meeting's decorum will not be tolerated. Such behavior hinders constructive dialogue and prevents others from participating fully and respectfully. If you violate these rules, we'll certainly give you a warning, a first warning, but then after that, you'll be asked to leave the meeting. A failure to comply may result in removal and, if necessary, legal action. We understand that specific topics may evoke strong emotions or opinions, but sharing these perspectives at the appropriate time during the meeting is crucial. Doing so ensures your voice is heard in a way that contributes positively to the discussion. Interruptions or speaking out of turn only disrupt the process and create unnecessary challenges, which, as we've seen in the past year, impede progress for our town. Let's come together and ensure our meetings are respectful, focused, and productive for the benefit of Merrillville. Thank you all for your cooperation, and commitment to positive change. Moving on tonight to Resolution 2501. It's a resolution confirming the designation of an economic revitalization area and approving the deduction from assessed value of real property improvements. Mr. Pettit, can you describe this project, where it's located?
Mr. President, if I could, let's back up to legal counsel on the public hearing notices. Joe, please.
Oh, yeah, do we give notice?
Mr. President, at this time, legal notices have been reviewed. They are in proper order, and we are ready to proceed for this public hearing.
Very good. Mr. Pettit.
Mr. President, members of the council, we have in the audience tonight with us Bob Swentz from London Witty, Tom Pittman from Barnes and Thornburg, and our Economic Development Director, Angie Chilcott. This resolution was prepared after a positive recommendation from the Economic Development Committee at a vote of 5-0. The resolution went to the Redevelopment Commission with a positive recommendation. Matt Cruz with Crow Holdings is here in the audience. Matt, if you want to step up again. This is for approximately 67 acres at 73rd Avenue and Mississippi and I-65. There are two parcels that Crow Holdings has under purchase agreement to acquire from two of our landowners to construct three buildings, a 400,000 square foot building and two 250,000 square foot buildings on this property. Again, everyone clearly knows my feelings. It's in Ward 6. The track record with Crow Holdings in the town of Merrillville is absolutely 100% impeccable. I thank him. The interesting thing about this resolution, keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, is when people come in and ask us for tax incentives, we have a project labor agreement with the Northwest Indiana Building Trades Council. That means that Matt's contractors in silos at Sanders Farm and the two buildings he built in Ameriplex and these three buildings either have to be built by union contractors or they have to pay prevailing wage in negotiating with Mr. Palmatier and the Trades Council. This is creating union construction jobs as well as permanent jobs. I'll stop, Matt, let you take over.
Man, I got to follow all of what just transpired, my lord. Michael, you certainly can articulate a position even in frustration better than I ever could. So I'll try not to sound like a babbling idiot up here. Thank you for everybody that's here, both for and against, or just those just looking for more clarification on what we're asking for. So let me just set the table. I've obviously presented in front of town council plenty of times over the last 5 years. How do the buildings we build and develop get built? So Class A, institutional quality, owned by pension funds, so oftentimes international, but institutional Class A buildings, how do they get built? They get built by the fine folks, many of you who are here tonight in Randy's membership. Thank you for all your support. I understand our contractor, Arco Murray, maybe won an award with you last year?
Yeah, if I can speak, I can get over
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So, but point being, the folks, many of whom are in the room, have spent the last 5 years building $271 million worth of Class A industrial product in the town of Merrillville. We almost always build on spec, meaning we go out, find debt and equity partners, and develop and commit financially to these investments in town without a tenant. We're betting on the come. That's the way the industry works. There are some build-a-suits where you're building a building specifically for a tenant, a la Panduit, is one of our buildings in town, but for the large part, my business is taking a chance that if we build a building, somebody's gonna come along and lease it. I've got a building that's been completed for 14 months, sitting at the corner of 101st and Mississippi. You would die if you saw how much that costs to carry every month. That's the risk we take. We have 7 tenants that we brought to the town of Merrillville. All 7 of them, including Amazon on the million footer, have said, we need some type of significant financial incentive to be willing to locate not in O'Hare, not in I-55, not in the I-80 corridor, in Chicago market proper. We need some incentive that makes it worth our while to take a chance on a lesser-known submarket, i.e. Northwest Indiana. There's a lot of industrial base here, but there's not as much as in Bolingbrook, there's not as much in Joliet. That's proven, that's tried and true, right? That's what they're telling us. I can only speak to what I hear from my tenants. We're willing to come here and invest if we know we can build buildings that get leased. If tenants are saying we need to realize the benefit of a tax abatement program to at least be encouraged to come here, to experience all the great amenities, that's what we need to ask for. Tenants pay the tax bill, I don't. The building owner does not. It's a pass-through. The tenants get all of the benefit of any tax incentives you offer. Why should Merrillville be different? There were some studies cited that said tax abatement blanket is just bad. The way the program is set up in Merrillville, there's a 15% deduction fee agreement. So throughout the 10-year program, during that abatement program, the town gets a payment of 15% of all those savings. The town normally takes about 25.2% of the tax bill, so you're getting 15% of all the abated part of it. This property is giving you $553 a year right now. As soon as if we got buildings completed in 26, so the 26 tax year payable 27, we'll pay just about $200,000 in real estate taxes, our tenants will, to the town of Merrillville. Over the next 15 years, it's $3.5 million. So you compare that, $3.5 million over 15 years to $7,500 if it stays undeveloped. Total tax bill these 3 buildings would pay is $11.1 million. So it's a huge inbound revenue. I just don't feel comfortable, my equity doesn't feel comfortable, my lender doesn't feel comfortable unless they know that the tenants are gonna get a benefit. So that's what I'm here asking for tonight, and happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from the council? I know we've seen Matt a few times about this property. No? Then
I
we
could
will-
add.
You have a question for the developer?
No, I could just mention, Matt has been very forthright in answering just about every single question that I've asked. I definitely have the town of Merrillville's interest at heart. Matt even understood the point that I made that, hey, I don't think this is the highest and best use, but that's his decision. And he's paying these people $120,000 per acre. That's a lot of money that is getting paid. And I did the math. In this particular deal, the town of Merrillville definitely will be getting more money. I hate that it's another ugly warehouse, but the fact of the matter is this is one of the best abatement deals that I've seen out of all of them. So, and I just really want to say thank you for explaining everything, because I went through the numbers. I didn't just take his word for it. And we will be getting that deduction or whatever it's called. But if we want something else other than a warehouse, we got to take it upon ourselves and buy some land and build some stuff. But I just want to say that, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's open
Appreciate
for public comment, which is, I think, why some of you are here tonight. So we're now open for public comment. State your name and address for the record, and we allow 3 minutes.
Randy Palmetier. I'm the business manager for the Northwestern Indiana Building and Construction Trades Council. We're an umbrella organization that represents all the trades that covers Northwest Indiana with roughly 30,000 members, hardworking men and women, highly trained. Many of our who are here in the audience. Can I have all my hardworking trade members stand up, please? Everybody stand up. That's what the building trades. Put your hands up. So in the sake of brevity and redundance, I'm not going to have everybody march up here and talk. A majority of the men and women standing right now have worked on those projects out there and live in the town of Merrillville, okay?
That's great.
So I stand up in support of Resolution 2501, and I hope the council does the right thing on this. And we will remember it at the ballot box if you vote for or against it, if you get what I'm saying. So thank you for the time, and for a point of personal privilege, I'm born and raised in the town of Merrillville. I graduated from Merrillville High School. My family still lives here. So I want to thank everybody for all the due diligence. I also want to point out a few more things. It's been a pleasure to work with Kroll Holdings and Arkell Murray, and they did sign on to our project labor agreements that have clauses in them. Indiana Plan's one of them, minority outreach. They signed on to that. They also signed on to helmets to hard hats. Arkell Murray has put, and Kroll Holdings have put veterans to work and town residents to work on this project, making an area standard, making a union wage, which that dollar flips over 10 times going out to eat, filling your gas tanks. They all live in the town. So whatever you think you're losing on this or that, you're not. It's going back into the community. So with that, I rise in support of it. I want to thank all my hardworking men and women that showed up tonight. Give yourself a round of applause, please.
Thank you, sir.
Pablo Payan, 8031 Massachusetts Street. First, I want to thank Ms. Neal for sending me this document in regard to tax abatements that you are in favor and in favor of this abatement itself. And strangely, this is the same one that Chris tried to give you on the last town council meeting that you threw on the floor. So I'm reading what you sent me. Summary and recommendations from this document. We report findings that suggest that as a job creation tool, local tax incentives in Indiana appear to be minimally effective. We also report that there is not a strong relationship between abatements and the growth of assessed value over time. The implication is that on an average, the use of abatements as a tool for growing a property tax base is not particularly effective in the short to intermediate term. These findings cast significant doubt on the efficacy of Indiana's system of property tax abatements in creating jobs, increasing the tax base, or controlling property tax rates. So this is the one you sent me in favor of tax abatements. So
Exactly.
I still don't comprehend how you came to that decision if this completely disagrees with the tax abatements. So with all the local guys, brothers and sisters, I was in manufacturing for 20 years. 4 of them I was in the union as well. You guys unionize for a reason. You guys unionize for better benefits, better pay, respect from the employers, respect from the companies you work for. And that's what we're coming together. We want respect. And this council's not taking respect. Okay, that's fine. Kroll Holdings made $12 billion in 2024. Okay, we're losing revenue, we're losing money on this deal. All the property tax that is generated is in a TIF zone, is going to the RDC. Police department don't see it, schools don't see it, county doesn't see it, library doesn't see it. I wasn't talking,
Okay, so-
don't interrupt. I didn't interrupt you. Have some professionalism. Yeah, you're not gonna escort them? Or you're gonna pick and choose?
Got a warning,
Okay.
Randy. Come on, let's go, guys. Come on.
We'll warn you.
Brian Messart, 201 East 68th Place. We really need to apply rules fairly and quickly about the rules. Mr. Svetnoff, Mr. Pettit, and Mr. Griffin all broke the rules before anybody in the public got up. Keep that in mind. The rules are for everybody, not. As far as tax abatements go, tax abatements in and of themselves, in a small silo, not a bad deal. But when every business in the Merrillplex and in the TIF zones along the Mississippi corridor has a tax abatement, that becomes a problem. Having tax abatements inside of a TIF zone, as Pablo stated, all that money gets rediverted to the Redevelopment Commission. That's TIF money. As the town has stated through Mr. Griffin, we don't want to support the police or the fire through TIF zone money because magically that's not going to be there forever. So you are publicly stating that you're not supporting the fire, and the police. In addition, this is the SB1, the Statement of Benefits that Kroll Holdings, Matt Cruz filled out. On that, he has to put down for the state how many jobs. Current jobs, 0. Current average salaries, 0. Current jobs retained, not available. Current salaries retained, not available. Additional jobs to be determined. Additional salaries to be determined. This statement of benefits is their company saying this is what we're going to bring to the table. This says 0. This says nothing. We're going to give a tax abatement for nothing? They have 2 properties that get tax abatements that they've built nothing on.
Move your mic up, please, Brian, so we can hear you good.
I apologize.
No, it's no problem.
They have 2 properties that they have not built on, and now they want to buy more properties that they haven't built on. The building on spec is speculation. In their form, in their packet, they say, and I quote, immediate income from the town, unlike fully assessed property taxes, are set 75% of the bills sent to local schools. 100% of the tax abatement deduction fees go straight to the town. This celebrates cheating the school system. Out of 75%. If they were paying their full tax bill on that one property, that's over $800,000 to the school system that is being cheated. Is that a good deal? Maybe. It's a debatable thing. However, they're also in a TIF zone, not paying to the county, not paying to Ross Township. You want to know what one of Ross Township's biggest expenses is? The fire department. We need to take a better look at this. And it's not just warehouses. I personally don't have a problem with warehouses. I personally don't have a problem with us creating jobs to build stuff. I personally don't have a problem with tax abatements. But the thing of it is we have a cumulative system that is hurting us, and we won't see the payoff for 10, 20, 30 years. We need to pay off now. What do we have to show? We might have jobs, but we don't have the restaurants, we don't have the entertainment, we don't have the facilities, the parks department. Everybody in Merrillville goes to some other community like Crown Point, Cherville, or Hobart to do their stuff. And that's, at one point in time, when does someone stand up and say, it's time for Merrillville to get for Merrillville?
Hi, excuse me. My name is Philip Schneider, and I am a research librarian. I was asked to come here by the Merrillville Change Agency. I was doing research on tax abatement policy for them, and they asked me to share what I had learned. All right. So I read several documents and studies. I'm only going to share a couple here today. The first one is called Patterns of Tax Abatement Policy Lessons from the Outliers. And this was centered in Michigan, which is your neighbor and a similar state. And they found that tax abatement only had a positive effect on the community 10% of the time. So 90% of the time, the community lost. I'd like to quote a couple things from, I'd like to quote a couple items from their research. They said tax abatements tend to redistribute public sector revenues to private sector interests, which means they're going to take money from the community and give it to rich companies. They tend to not produce jobs and tax-based benefits, commemorates to the loss of local revenues. They have not achieved the levels of growth desired and have negative secondary impacts. They fail to have an additional impact on overall business activity and have only short-lived positive effects and are not large enough to counterbalance the negative effects that happen in the future. The second study is called The Increased Use of Property Tax Abatement as a Means of Promoting Subnational Economic Activity in the United States, which is a country-wide study. It was quite long, but the conclusion of it is that tax abatements tend to lead to an increased taxes elsewhere, which means that taxes lost with the abatement are usually found by reducing the benefits to the community or raising taxes on other parts of the community instead. The third and final one I want to bring up today is about Ohio, which is another one of your neighbors and a similar state. It says it was called an equilibrium model of tax abatement city and firm characteristics as determined of abatement's generosity. And this one was about the effects of abatements on the school system. It found that among hundreds of different towns who did tax abatements, they only received on average 2 to 5% more revenue than those that did not have tax abatements within the same state and period of time. Because this is an average, that means a lot of communities lost revenue and some communities gained revenue. So it depends on which town you're from and if you get lucky to be on the winning side. I'd like to conclude by saying that tax abatements aren't necessarily a terrible thing. They can be good, but on average, how we currently use them leads to negative effects for most communities. Because of that, most researchers and professors believe that tax abatements should be much, much lower than are currently given out. And as mentioned earlier today, most think that they should be completely eliminated. So if you are still going to think of a tax abatement, whatever you're currently thinking of offering, you should probably make that a lower amount to make it fairer for the community. You should also have termination clauses so that if they don't produce enough economic value, if they don't bring jobs that they promise to bring, if they don't keep pollution levels to what they promise, then you could terminate the abatement and they have to pay full taxes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Chris Holst, 800 West 73rd Avenue. For the last 2 weeks, since our last meeting, I've had a little internal turmoil because I realized I was out of line. I want to apologize to the town council and to you directly, Matt. Because I went back and I watched the October 9th Economic Committee meeting. I've watched many of the redevelopment commission meetings. And my biggest thing that I came out with was this: tax abatement, no tax abatement, 5 years, 10 years, none. That's not the real issue here, guys. The real issue is, say Matt gets a 10-year tax abatement, which I intend is going to happen, and I've got no problem with that. But when you put that in the middle of it, and that sits right in the middle of the Mississippi Street TIF corridor. So what that means is, as long as that is sitting in that TIF zone, that money will go to the Redevelopment Commission. It will not be available to benefit the town, the citizens, the ones who want parks, the ones who want additional firefighters, additional law enforcement. By the way, and that's what we've been fighting for, folks. Our passion may come across as we don't like Crow Holdings. It's further from the truth, because you're bringing a lot of value to this town. You're bringing jobs. But quality of life is more than just jobs. It's an important part of it. But quality of life also means that your kids can go to a school that's not falling down, that doesn't have 18-year-old carpet in it. It means that they can go to a park. It means community. We're missing that by all in every which way. So I would have no problem with Matt having a 10-year tax abatement. I know some of my people here are thinking, Chris, have you lost your mind? Because you made sense to me. I put myself in your shoes, Matt. When I watched that meeting, I saw you articulate things. Years 1, 2, 3, we get the administration fee, if I'm not correct. On this property is roughly going to be, about $85,000 a year for 3 years? And then the tax is going to ramp up from there, correct? Until it gets full boat, right?
Yep.
Is it ideal? No. It's a better deal than what we had. In addition to that, we getting some jobs? Yeah. But what I would ask from you, Matt, is this. can you help us out with our quality of life? And what I mean by that is, I'm not sure how familiar you are with this town, but 73rd and Mississippi is the end of our historical district. Is that right, Mr. Pettit?
Yes, it is.
Could you honor that property and our history by putting something on there? It could be small, it doesn't have to be huge, but honor the history of our town. And I know personally, I love that bike path and I love all the woods in there. If there was a way that you could turn around and maybe try to keep as much of it as you can. One thing I loved about the Erie-Lackawanna bike path, when you ride through Crown Point, it's a subtle little thing, but it hits home with me every time I go by it. There's a bench dedicated to the farmer who was the curator of that property for all that time. It'd be nice if we could honor the owner of that property in some manner. And these are things, they're small little gestures, but the equal quality of life, it equals acknowledging the community and what values to the community. I hope that's something we could get behind. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. President, if I could just comment to Chris and some of the members of the audience on Matt's behalf. I will remind the council that Crow Holdings did give the town of Merrillville $350,000 as a part of silos at Sanders Farm. That was given to Chief Ed Yurga, in which he bought all brand-new radios for the firefighters. So they have made their commitment, and I've also asked Matt, Steve, on your behalf. Matt is verbally committed to buying a new public works truck for the town of Merrillville.
Thank you, Mr. Pettit.
Sure.
Is there any other public comment?
One of my questions is, I believe, Mr. President.
Go ahead.
Yeah, one of my questions is, I believe, what Chris just said, and I asked Mr. Pettit this, because of the offer that Matt has made, he hasn't asked anything from the town. They're doing the road improvements, they're doing all of the infrastructure in the place, and typically when you have a TIF, that's because you're going to do some sort of infrastructure improvement. So why does this really have to be in a TIF if they're doing everything? I mean, all of the improvement is being done by Crow Holdings. The town is not going to actually contribute money to do some roads or anything like that because they said they're going to do it. That's what I asked him in the email, and he said they're going to do it, all of the expansion. They're not going to go over the expressway. So all of the concerns that we had were pertaining to that. So my real question is, why do we have to put this in a TIF? Is it legal? Is that the only way we can give an abatement, by being in the TIF? If not, take it out the TIF, and I think most of the objections that the town has will be over with. You give them the abatement, and at the same time, the rest of the town, the school corporation, everybody gets some of the money.
Thank you, Mr. January. Is there a motion from the council?
So moved.
Second.
Motion for approval? Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Second by Mrs. Uselak. Open for discussion from the council. Hearing none, Mr. January, roll call, please.
Vice President Neal.
Yes.
Councilwoman Haynes Edwards.
Aye.
Councilwoman Chandler Felton.
Aye.
Councilwoman Uselak.
Yes.
Councilman Pettit.
Yes.
Councilwoman Hardaway.
Yes.
President Bella.
Yes.
7 in favor.
7 in favor. Motion carries. Thank you all. Moving on tonight to Resolution 25-02. It's a resolution of the Town of Merrillville approving an order of the Town of Merrillville Plan Commission approving a resolution designating the declaration of Broadway and Merrillville North Economic Development Area. This is a to designate an area in the north port of town for redevelopment purposes. Anything else to add, Mr. Griffin?
Mr. President, I have nothing to add. It's unrelated to this, but it occurs to me after I've heard the research, Indiana abatements are not like they're done in many states. They're not even really contemplated, as the Government Accounting Standards Board has given guidance on full accrual reporting dealing with tax loss. We don't really get that in Indiana. And after our conversation, I'm more encouraged that with your permission, I'm going to put together a presentation, a workshop to try to explain exactly how ours works. I really respected the materials that came from the researcher. That's true for a lot of abatements in the United States, but Indiana's kind of sui generis with it. And with your permission, I may do a presentation on that. In terms of the resolution before you, these are one of 3 that need to come before you, and they will go back to the consideration of the Redevelopment Commission if you approve them this evening.
Right. And just for the council's clarification, I did meet with Mr. Griffin yesterday. We discussed some workshops, some Q&A sessions that have been suggested here multiple times. We talked about the topics we're going to discuss, and we're going to try and get a schedule together starting in March of this year at the Dean and Barbara White Community Center so that we can kind of educate residents about some of these issues. And let's be honest, these are complex issues. They're not easy. They're hard to understand. There's a lot of moving parts. He mentioned Ohio and Michigan. Those states may have different rules on how you can use TIFs. Not exactly the same as Indiana. TIF districts do not take away from the school system budget. That comes, it's figured out of a totally different area, and so it doesn't really affect that. So there's a lot of things we can share with people to help educate, and we're going to start doing that in these work sessions.
Mr. President, I make a motion to approve Resolution 2502.
Second.
Because I have to study.
A motion by Mr. Pettit and a second by Mrs. Uselak for approval of 2502. Any other discussion from the council?
Mr. President, I'll remind the council and members of the audience that, again, this resolution and any subsequent resolutions will go back to the Redevelopment Commission. Mr. Pittman and Angie will prepare the legal notices, and there will be legal public hearing at the January 28th RDC meeting at 6 o'clock.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? The motion carries. Moving on to Resolution 25-03, it's a resolution in the Town of Merrillville approving an order of the Town of Merrillville Plan Commission, approving a resolution of the Town of Merrillville Redevelopment Commission designating and declaring the Mississippi Crow Economic Development Area.
Mr. President, make a motion to approve Resolution 2503.
Second.
A motion from Mr. Pettis, seconded by Councilor Neal for approval. Open for discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Moving on to Resolution 25-04, it's a resolution approving an order of the Town of Merrillville Plan Commission approving a resolution of the Town of Merrillville Redevelopment Commission designating and declaring the Silos East Economic Development Area.
Motion to approve Resolution 25-04.
Second.
This is a motion by Mrs. Uselak with a second by Mr. Pettit for approval. I believe this moves the district a little bit further to the east to encapsulate the land where the data center may go in.
Yes, that's correct.
That's on 101st Avenue. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? That motion carries. Moving on to Resolution 25-05. It's a resolution for the Redevelopment Commission designating and declaring the Liberty Estates West Economic Development Area. This is the new Liberty Estates West area that goes across Whitcomb Street. That's in Mrs. Uselak's district.
So moved.
Motion by
Second.
Mrs. Uselak, second by Mr. Pettit for approval of Resolution 25-05. Questions or comments from the council? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? That motion carries. Moving on to Resolution 25-06. It's a resolution providing for a transfer of appropriation balances from and among major budget classifications in the Police Department, in the Parks Department, and in the General Fund requested by the proper officer and forwarded to the Town Council for action. Mr. Griffin, anything to add on this?
Mr. President, none. It's fairly straightforward. It has no net impact on the aggregate budget, but it will put some monies in the places they need to be to support expenses that we're aware of in the next month or two.
Chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Uselak, seconded by Counselor Shi, for approval of Resolution 25-06. Questions or comments from the council? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Last resolution, 25-07, it's a resolution authorizing temporary inter-fund loan or transfer pursuant to Indiana Code to support cash flow in the redevelopment general fund. Mr. Griffin.
Mr. President, the redevelopment general fund was part of a plan to deal with a corrective action measure from 2 audits ago. The general fund is contemplated in the statute. It has a levy in place, but the levies won't be collected until taxes are due in May and December. In the meantime, there's expenses that'll be due from that fund, and this is the cheapest rate in town, a free loan from another fund of the town. And we ask that you favor this tonight, please.
So what you're really saying, Mr. Griffin, is that for the first time, I can give some money to Mr. Pettit, who helps the town council so much with a lot of his RDC.
I would never try to contradict the president, but I like to think of it as you're giving it to Ms. Chilcott and the staff of the redevelopment department, but that's just
very
me.
well. I will never let you forget this, Sean. Chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Uselak, seconded by who? Counselor Neal. Thank you. Questions or comments from the council? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? That motion carries. Ms. Shine, do we have any BZA or large gathering actions tonight?
No, sir, Mr. President.
We have no old business, no new business. Public comment. Please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record for public comment.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Scott. I live at 15 West 71st Place. I've lived here my whole life, so I've been here for 54 years. And I got involved in September, whenever the taxes were talked about being increased. And legitimately, I know that you all have done a lot of things for us over the last 50 years of my life, and I've largely not been involved. And that's just because when you're trying to live and you're just trying to figure out where the money is coming from to live, like, these things are not very important. However, the last few months, my husband and I have been showing up to every single meeting. And we have been showing up to every single meeting because we don't understand what's going on, and we really want to understand what's going on. We do want to get involved. We do want to make where we live a really good place. I grew up here. So I remember the drive-in, and I remember going places in town, Hidden Lake Park. Like, this place was amazing. We would like to have that for our children. We would like to have that for our grandchildren. So we have been showing up for the last few months, and we understand that we don't know what you've done. And we understand that that's probably really frustrating when we come up here and ask questions. But we're asking questions because we do want to be involved. I am a teacher. I don't have a lot of parents that get involved. When I have one that shows up and wants to get involved, I have an obligation to sit down with them and tell them how they can help. I have sat here and I've watched people roll their eyes and just be very disgusted by our questions. So I would really like to have an opportunity to have a question and answer session so that we could come to you with some presented questions and we could receive the answers and maybe not be so ignorant. We could really work together to make this place a much better place. I don't have grandkids, but at some point, I don't want to take them to Crown Point. I don't want to take them to Hobart. I want to take them to Merrillville, where I grew up. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sabina Miller, 3120 West 75th Place. I think my question, and I realize you do not have to answer my questions from looking at these rules, the Roberts rules. Is there anything up in the town of Merrillville that says people can take snowmobiles and ride all over the place and ride over people's personal property and ride across the streets and ride into the cemetery, like Calumet Park Cemetery? Because there are tracks all over Lincoln Gardens, and they are going straight through my yard and other people's yards, and I don't know who did it. I wasn't home when it happened. But I certainly would think that that is deemed trespassing and something should happen about snowmobiles riding through
We'll look into that.
residential neighborhoods.
Thank you. We'll look into that. Sure.
Samuel Payan, 407 West 89th Place. Thank you and Happy New Year, everybody. So, it's kind of disheartening as a person, a pursuer of education, and have multiple degrees at this point, and that we don't follow the research, okay? That Sean Pettit and everybody else who is on the committee doesn't follow the research. And the research suggests that this is not a good idea to do tax abatement, okay? That is clear. And that's not debatable. That's what it is. People who are smarter than us, who dedicated their lives, came up with that decision. And we, not even myself, okay, I'm not smart enough to figure that out, because that's why we have experts in their fields. We're not listening to them. So that, to me, I'm thinking then there's some strings attached to the decision that was made, each one of everybody there. That we're not research-based decision-making, so there has to be something else they're incentivizing. Whether it's a radio, whether it's a truck, whether it's a pizza party, whether it's someone's pockets, we don't know. So, I mean, that's pretty clear here on with the decision that was made. In several emails I was on, we were trying to organizational chart for Merrillville in terms of how you all are, who reports to who was trying to be produced. We were trying to attain that. And till this day, there hasn't been anything. Michael Griffin continues to fail to provide accurate information. And in wanting to be transparent, we're trying to figure that out. Every successful organization has, we could ask Crow Holdings. They're a $12 billion company. They're pretty successful. And they're asking to be more successful on our dime. And I'm pretty sure they have an organizational chart. We're not part of the ethics board at all, SEAC. We have still people from Hardaway, who's a community member, and the person before that. We're not even part of that organization anymore. And it takes a little bit to be part of that organization. And I don't even know if we would pass the test again. I would be interested in being part of that to help the community get better. So I appreciate everybody. I hope some of y'all listen to me, half of y'all asleep, so thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Pablo Payan, 8031 Massachusetts Street. Hey, Joe, do you know the First Amendment? Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. On January 7th, 2025, we had the Plan Commission meeting. At approximately 6:56 p.m., Brian Messarch was doing public comment. And you tried to bully him by saying the First Amendment is not adopted here. It's on video, and I can forward you the video so you can see it, even though you shake your head. Then during my public comment, you again tried to bully me in saying what I had to say and infringe on my First Amendment right of free speech, saying I didn't have freedom of speech. You as an attorney, you should know this. Merrillville Section 2-40, the rules of parliamentary practice compromised in Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised, shall govern the town council in all cases into which they are applicable and provided they are not inconsistent with the division. Robert's rules clearly states the public has the right to make critical and harsh remarks. So if you're following these rules, you should understand that we can make critical and harsh remarks. Now, we've all been coming to these meetings. We haven't been offensive to any of you guys. We bring the data and you guys don't like it. And that's what you guys find offensive. So Sean, your abusive yelling at the Plan Commission meeting was completely unprofessional. Coming from an elected official, you cannot contain yourself when the public posts factual data and is exposing the poor decision-making that you are making for the town of Merrillville. You should lead by example. Now we got Michael Griffin yelling, and then next meeting we'll have somebody else yelling. If you can't contain your anger, maybe you need to find another different job.
Brian Messarch, 201 East 68th Place. Today, I had the lovely experience of, I think I got an email from Mr. Svetinov's law firm. I don't know what it says, but I can guarantee you it is a notice from the town of Merrillville, and it is not ADA compliant. And if I have to sue you and the town and your whole law firm so that you follow federal law, I'm sure I'll find an attorney who will take that. Mr. Mullins has done pretty well. I'm tired of asking nicely. When you're disabled, you don't go and shout it to the world because you just want to live like a normal person. Our lives are hard enough. It's sickening. At that planning committee, we are at a point, and I am going to go back to a conversation I had with Ms. Neal. She's like, why does it always have to be a fight? We don't want the fight. We've been begging for a Q&A. We've been asking for a round table. That's what we want. At that last meeting, Mr. Pettit says, I'm too old to care. If you're too old to care, then maybe it's time to just hang it up and walk away. There's no shame in that. I want someone who cares about Merrillville. I've lived in Ward 6 for 26 years. I've owned my house. Mr. Pettit has had a public forum for residents of Ward 6 0 times. We need to change that. We need to change the temperature of this. This whole thing, the fighting, it's getting us nowhere. We need to sit down even if we disagree. Mr. Pettit said that we hide behind keyboards. No, we're coming to the meetings. We come to the workshops. We're voicing our opinion. We may disagree. It doesn't mean I hate you. It doesn't even mean if I like you or not. Maybe I disagree with your opinion. That's all it means. We need to get away from this rhetoric where we are trying to shame each other and make each other feel stupid and incompetent and worthless when we're all trying to build the same thing. When are we going to get together, not in this form, not hiding behind all the things? When are we going to come together and sit down and start hashing things out? Because until we get to that point, it's just going to be mad fighting. And to be honest with you, I've been doing this for over 4 years. I'm getting kind of tired of it. I just want to see better. When can we get to the point where we're working on better?
Better together.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Joe Berger. I live at 6945 Broadway. I've been a Merrillville resident since 1966. And I want to thank the town board for getting the blighted house at 6935 and 6933 removed. It's a pleasure to sit on my driveway and look across an open field of greenery instead of a falling down, vermin-infested shack that I lived next to for 34 years. So getting on to the blighted thing, okay, there's 2 more blighted homes in my neighborhood, and I want to know what the plan is to have them removed like the one that was next door to me. One has been there for at least 25 years, and I wonder how many liens are on that property. And the one that's burned out at 6910 Broadway, or whatever it is, doesn't have an address. That's been there for about 3 years. And I wonder how many liens have been filed on that property. Also, were there liens filed against the man who owns the lot next door to me for the removal of the house and the trees and everything? And what was the cost of that? And how did it get paid for? And is he going to get a bill, the owner of the property? Nothing? Okay, well, I made a formal request today for all that stuff, and I turned it into the office, and I'll be expecting an answer on all those topics.
Yeah, that's
We'll get
the
back
way
to
to
you.
do it, Joe. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a plan on how to have those houses taken down, if you guys could just, you know, get it taken care of. You know, I don't want to have to do it myself. So, just let you know. Thanks.
The next council meeting will be January 28th at 6:30. The RDC meeting will be January 28th at 6 o'clock. And just for the ones suggesting to get together, that's what I was referring to about a March date. So we're going to come up with that. Maybe you didn't hear when I announced it earlier. So your Q&A session will be in March sometime. That's what I was referring to when I said I met with Mr. Griffin yesterday. So as soon as we get dates confirmed, we'll get the information out. Okay? With no objection, I will adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Aye.
Aye.
You don't need to vote. Thank you.
Joe says